Face to Face. It's a brand new week. For the Newsfirst team, I'm Niresh Thambi. Well, this morning, thousands of councillors of municipal councils, urban councils, and Pradeshia Sabhas, councillors who were elected by the people, went to work. They went to the councils and did whatever councillors are supposed to do. And it's a wonderful feeling for those of us who fought hard to get these councils elected. It was delayed for so long, one of the worst subversions of democracy that this country has seen, at least in recent years. But finally, we had this election on top of the other two elections last year, and we have the councils, and they are they're sorting out who's going to be the mayor, the chairman, and so on of the councils where nobody has a majority. Right, and to discuss all this and the way forward, what do we have to do to go forward from here? We have with us Mr. Nuwan Bopage, who was, of course, a very familiar face during the days of the Aragalaya. He is an attorney at law, and he represents the People's Struggle Alliance, of which he is a member of the National Executive Committee. Good evening and welcome, Nuwan.
Good evening, Desh.
Right, it's been some time since you came on Face to Face, yes. Unusually so, but here we are, and you're here on a very important day when finally the fruits of democracy can be seen. And as a person who fought for this, who fought for the elections to be held, how do you feel about seeing the councils finally in place?
Yeah, even I think you remember 2014, 2024 March, the Ranil Wickremesinghe government, actually they postponed the election.
Illegally
postponed, yes. So even by that time, as the people, we as Frontline Socialist Party, those days actually had a lot of protest demanding government to immediately call for that election. The very reason for that was that is one of the reflection of democracy. Now actually 2 years down the line, now election was held. As you said, new mayors, new chairman, they were appointed today, and now they have to commence their work. On the side of the government, what they said, they got the executive power, then legislature, they got the majority 2/3 power. Now they were able to secure their power inside the local authorities as well. As I know, around 151 local authorities today, they declared that NPP was able to secure their power. So there's another, I think, more than 150 local authorities to be appointed. I think still there is a issue regarding as to how get the majority. Anyway, within 1 or 2 weeks, that also will be resolved. So
I think the Elections Commission has given a deadline of 7 days.
7 days.
So by next Sunday, all these councils have to report back in writing who their office bearers are.
Yes. So as People's Struggle Alliance, we are of the view whoever get the majority seats in these local authorities should be given opportunity to form their local authority. But we know now, right now, SJB, then these UNP and Podujana Peramuna, they are having discussions to form their role inside these authorities, go for coalitions. So their main purpose is to somehow get the power. At the same time, the NPP, during soon after the general election, within 4 or 5 months, their vote base was drastically declined. They were actually around 2.4 million votes they lost. So that's one of the messages, important messages given by the people. They have a lot of aspirations regarding this government, but yeah, since you are not unable to meet these aspirations, people gave that message as well. So now NPP is struggling. So even a government which had 2/3 power in the parliament now struggling to get the secure their power inside these around 150 local authorities. So anyway, what we believe, whoever gets majority should form these local authorities, because now these local authorities are concerned in these villages, in these cities. Of course, there are a lot of issues regarding health issues, waste management. These kind of lot of issues are there. So in order to resolve these issues, of course, people need some sort of arrangement. So that arrangement is the local authority. So therefore we believe immediately these government and other parties will somehow resolve these issues and start their work for the sake of the people.
Well, certainly that's what we've all been waiting for, because for years the citizens, had no one to actually talk to, no one to call. You could call your Pradeshya Sabha and you might get your complaint taken down. Somebody will jot it down, but usually it's not fixed, or it takes a long time to fix. So, and you're dealing with people whom you don't know.
Yes.
Whereas when it's the councillors, well, you know who they are. You may not have voted for that person, but and you know that person's name, so you can call them up.
Yes.
Whether they are in the majority of the council or not, doesn't matter. You can they're on the council, and you can give your complaint or your suggestion.
Yes.
And there are so many things that local councils need to do.
Yes.
And you mentioned waste disposal, and the safety and security, women's issues, children's issues, and so on.
Yes.
And even job creation, don't you think, at the small and medium level, can be facilitated by local authorities?
Exactly. Yeah. The main now, even on the side of the government, that they said most of these local authorities were corrupted, so they are going to establish a new mechanism to avoid this kind of corruption. So even this government, so recent past, we know various steps have been taken by bribery commission. So as a result of that, we have seen certain investigations have been commenced. The main thing is now, even the corruption is concerned, it's actually part and parcel with this system. So whatever laws, whatever rigid rules you have been implemented, but if you continue the same existing system, there's a high possibility even this corruption and system might be absorbed the people. So that can be happen to NPP as well. So we believe merely because you introduce new laws, that won't resolve this issue, because it's a part and parcel of the system. Why I am saying that? Now, what is the main corruption in this country? Main corruption is when you work, you will not be given value for that work. So salaries are very low. Even the most of the workers, the working class, they are working for a pittance. At the same time, on the other hand, taxation is very high. In these circumstances, people are suffering. They are actually below the poverty level. In a situation like this, it's very difficult to completely annihilate corruptions and bribery issues. Therefore, the government should concentrate on that as well. So you can implement laws, but if the society is suffering from poverty and majority is below the poverty level, it's very difficult you to avoid this kind of corruption. So actually, President today declared, I think, the tax week kind of thing. So initially they started, I think, Clean Sri Lanka project. Now nobody knows what is happening there. Now today they start another project saying that tax week. Anyway, most important thing is people, general public is concerned, they have no option. They are paying taxes because majority is paying VAT. So 18% VAT, we have no option. Whatever.
VAT, and there are so many others.
Yes.
I mean, if it's an imported good, you have all the customs tariffs, the excise levies, and a whole bunch of smaller levies.
Now, what I want to say now, people, general public is concerned, they have no option. They are paying taxes because 18% VAT we have to pay. We can't, when we take some services or good from a shop, we can't say we are not paying tax. It's included. And withholding tax, we have to pay. No option. Now, who actually defaulted these payments? I think top corporates, around 162 million rupees, they defaulted according to the Auditor General's reports. So, in this tax week, there's nothing in respect of these kind of defaults regarding top corporates. So, therefore, everything is ultimately burden shifted to general public, those who are paying taxes. Therefore, in a situation like that, if you are talking about corruption, of course, these things, you should have concern about these things. On one hand, the people should be, their salaries and income should be increased. Then taxation and other tariff should be reduced. In a system like that, so people have money in their hand, if they can spend there for their family, if they can spend there for their happiness, then only people could get rid from these kind of bribery and corruption issues. Therefore, I think the government doesn't have that broad idea about the system. They think merely because you put somebody inside the jail or you arrested somebody, that will resolve the issue. We believe that is not the only solution. It should be has a very broad and very vivid thinking about this bribery and corruption.
No, from my point of view, you know, if you want to wipe out corruption, you have to have a full level of transparency in the tender processes, in the procurement processes. And we have procurement policies in this country. It's simply that they were never followed. We have technical committees and cabinet subcommittees and all that, but those committees were often told by various ministers, give it to this company or this individual. And this, you know, you find this at the ministry level, and you found it down to the Pradesh Sabha level. I think today there was the chairman of one urban council upcountry was arrested, the former chairman, and that is over a meat stall tender. So it had been given, the license was given to the unsuitable person. So this kind of thing, I think, you know, the whole problem is the whole process has been clouded. The public weren't told who actually applied, how many bidders, and you know, why this particular bidder was awarded it. And I mean, it may not be the lowest bidder. It may be somebody who is better on certain grounds. I mean, the lowest bidder could be knocked out due to quality issues. These things can happen, and that's why you have the committees. But none of this is transparent. All that we know is individual X was given this contract by the Pradesh Sabha, or company Y has been given this contract by a department or a ministry. But we don't see the process. So the process, don't you think, needs to be online, and you can, you know, any citizen can go to the relevant websites and see, well, who applied, what were their bids, and how was it sorted out.
Exactly. Now, transparency is one of the main elements to actually completely eradicate the corruption. Transparency in the sense, of course, as you correctly pointed out, now Right to Information Act is there. So using that, there is a path people to access for these details. And the government always saying, previous government, previous local authorities, their lack of transparency, and there were a lot of corruption. Of course, people know that. That's why people gave power to this particular NPP. Now rather than talking about the previous conduct, they have to show the transparency. I'll give two examples. One is recently the government called for bid for wind power, so they wanted to purchase 10 megawatts from 5 wind power plants, private wind power plants. There's a cabinet subcommittee decision. It says for one unit the price should be 23 rupees. Now according to government decision, now they are going to give 29 rupees for one unit. So where's the transparency? As you said, there's a cabinet subcommittee. They are doing it contrary to the cabinet subcommittee. As far as these five companies is concerned, there are two owners. Even though there are 5 companies, there are only 2 owners. These 2 owners are very close multi-millionaires to this particular government. So where's the transparency? Now did people expect this kind of things from this government? The second example is, now regarding the Indian agreements. So Indian agreements, we file RTI application asking these agreements. Up to now, there is no answer from the government. Only answer they have given, we have submitted these papers to Presidential Secretariat. These are not available with Presidential Secretariat. That's the only answer given. Then apparently ironically 2 agreements were circulated in the web and in the social media. So government did not deny these agreements. Then it's very clear government purposefully leaked this. Then people have access. In that, I have one agreement. This is regarding the fuel agreement, that fuel pipeline agreements. In clause number 10, it says a confidentiality. According to that clause, parties agree that information of whatever form and however obtained regarding inter alia the existence, the nature or progress of discussion in relation to this MOU, either party should not disclose, copy, reproduce or distribute these agreements. But 2 agreements are circulating. What happened to other 6 agreements? Especially the defense agreement is there, and at the same time regarding the drugs there is the agreement. So these agreements still
drugs as in pharmaceuticals.
Pharmaceuticals. Exactly, the government is very reluctant to give information to the people. So there are confidentiality clauses in those agreements as well. But they have unofficially published 2 agreements. The very reason of not publishing other agreements, there are certain clauses this detrimental to people. So where is the transparency? What is the purpose of RTI, right to information? So this, as you correctly pointed out, this transparency should come from the top of the government. If this government also unable to do that, of course that will drastically affect the aspirations of the people.
Now you spoke a lot about RTI, the right to information, which is an act which is now, my goodness, quite old. I think it was initially in the early 2000s it was drawn up, but then it didn't get presented, and then finally under the Yapalan government, yes, it was passed. And it is an excellent act, a very powerful act, a model for the rest of the world really, but it is a right to information act and not a transparency act. And here's the difference. With an RTI, you can, you file the RTI, you are entitled to an answer, but it's a long process. And if that particular party has something to hide, they are going to fight it all the way. So it may be a year or even more before you finally get it, because you have to, if they don't give it, you have to go to the RTI Commission, which has so many cases, and then after getting that ruling, it, yes, can go to the Court of Appeal. Yes. So it's a very long process. But I'm talking not about the right to information in that sense, but the transparency that government and local government must be transparent in all their dealings. That unless it has something to do with national security, or criminal investigations or something like that, which obviously can't be revealed, it should be up there on the websites, the website of the Pradesh Sabha or the website of the Foreign Ministry or whichever line ministry, it should be there. And in that sense, people can see it. So you don't have to file an RTI to find out what was the process for the local Pradesh Sabha or the urban council not to award the mead stall license to the best person. It should be right up there on the website. And in the same way, don't you agree that these MOUs, when they are being drafted, obviously the government representatives need to understand that the law of the land, the RTI Act and so on, means that they have to be divulged at some point.
Exactly. So procurement guidelines and tender process are concerned, I think those regulations are available, those guidelines are available. So the transparency is concerned now, of course, in local authorities and other institutions, even parliament. Recently we saw that certain vehicles of the presidential secretariat, they call bid and sold. So even for that procedure also, there were certain allegations, even that process is concerned. So of course this should be a practice, actually, this transparency and the honest conduct of these local authorities and other institutions. It should always be a practice. So in Sri Lankan context, we have not seen that practice was there. So always whatever officials maybe or otherwise politicians, they always their attempt was just to gain something out of that. So that practice was there. So that's why I said earlier, so complaining is not the solution. Now even when you thoroughly go through the speeches of president and other cabinet ministers, still what they are doing, complaining to previous regimes. So if these,
well, it's high time that this government now takes ownership.
Exactly.
Don't you think? Because
that's what
the president has been there since late September, and the parliament since
that's what
December.
now
So it's
now
we're
more than
six months. So
now it's about 7 months. So 7 months period is sufficient to bring at least key laws to the parliament, because we know we have certain experience in 1970 and 77 Samagi Peramuna government. Within very short span of time, they brought a constitution and they brought land reform law, rent act. So they had some sort of thinking, this should be the system, this is the social welfare and socialist system. In order to achieve that target, they immediately brought certain laws. Whether those are successful or not, there's always debate. And even the Japan is concerned, within very short span of time, they brought a lot of laws. Ultimately, it has become one of the corrupted government. But even within short period of time, they brought these laws. Now, this government was unable to bring a single law within 7 months. So at least they were unable to amend the parliament standing orders. Simple issues, for simple issues. So that is the problem people are facing. So you should, rather than talking, you have to immediately act on that. You have to immediately take measures to address these issues in the society, especially as you pointed out, regarding the transparency, regarding the corruption. At the same time, the national question is still there. No, in the north, we know even the local authorities election, what was their answer? So in parliamentary election, the majority voted for NPP. But when it comes to local authority, result is completely different. So there is nothing regarding the north, the national question. At the same time, there are other issues regarding the constitutional amendments. So we actually, during the presidential election, at the election, we thoroughly discussed this issue as to how we should broaden the public education, public health, how to bring it as fundamental rights of the people and right to employment, how to bring it as a amendment. So nothing. So only bill that now they are going to pass is the amendment to the Electricity Act. So Electricity Act, we know Ranil Wickremesinghe, that government, Kanchana Wijesekara, they brought to completely privatize, unbundle this institution to allow more than 12 companies. So even the recent amendment is concerned, they have not addressed that main issue.
Now, I'd like to go deeper into that Electricity Act as well. But first, we need to take a short commercial break. I am in conversation with Attorney at Law Nuwan Bopage. We'll be right back, so don't go away.
Test cricket.
ලෝකයක් බලා ඉන්න ලෝකයෝ හැපෙන ලෝක ටෙස්ට් ශූරතාවලිය.
It's about skill,
Intelligence.
endurance,
ඔස්ට්‍රේලියාව හා දකුණු අප්‍රිකාව අතර
wills of minds.
Of hearts.
සෙල්ලම ඉස්සල්ලම TV1 තිරපිටියෙන් ජූනි 11 සිට 15 දක්වා.
This is the ultimate test match.
Test cricket. It's not like other sports.
It's not even like other cricket. It's not just about power.
Or speed. It's much more than that.
It's about skill,
Intelligence.
endurance,
Courage.
Some things take time.
Evolving. Building.
Developing.
It can change slowly or in an instant.
They say it's not for everyone.
But greatness rarely is.
Once again, the saviour. What a champion.
This is cricket at its purest.
The one.
The pinnacle.
A battle of wills, of minds.
Of hearts.
The mace. The ultimate prize.
Lords, the ultimate venue.
This is the ICC World Test Championship Final.
My goodness. What a performance.
The ultimate test.
World Test Championship 2025 Final. Australia versus South Africa. Live on TV1 3 p.m. onwards.
දේශපාලනයේ මතවාද මත බේද මත විමසුම් සහ මත ගැටුම්
ජනාධිපති අරමුදලේ සල්ලි අරගත්තු වට්ටියනේ විරුද්ධ පක්ෂයේ മന്ത്രിවරු ෂෝ එකක් දාන්නවත් මාධ්‍ය සංදර්ශනයක්වත් නෙමෙයි කතා කරන්නේ. සර් මෙයාට පිස්සු. කේලම් කියන එක මම නැවතුවා. උතුරේ ලුණු දකුණේ ලුණු කියලා ලුණු නෑ බොස් හරිද? රටේ ලුණු තියෙන්නේ.
ලාංකේය දේශපාලනයේ පෙරලිකාර අදහස් සමගින්
ආණ්ඩුවට විරුද්ධව 50%ට වැඩිය තියෙන හැමතැනකම අපි විපක්ෂය ප්‍රාදේශීය බලය පිහිටුවා.
අපි ටර්න් එකක් ගැහුවේ මහා මැතිවරණයේදී.
දැන් අපි මේ පාර්ලිමේන්තුවේ නෑ අපි මේ පොඩි මිනිස්සු කියලා කියමුකෝ. මාලිමාවේ ඕනිම අයියා කෙනෙක්. හිට්ටි බච්චි බිත්ති බුට්ටි ඕනි කෙනෙක් එක්ක එන්න.
නරියා මිදිවැලේ කියන මිදි කන්න පැනලා කිව්වලු අල්ල ගන්න බැරි වෙලා කිව්වලු ඇඹුල් කියලා.
දිනෙන් දින උණුසුම් වන දේශපාලනයේ අවසන් කැපුම ෆයිනල් කට් unedited සතේ දිනවල රාත්‍රී 7:30ට TV1 ඔස්සේ.
If we don't get growth to 4.5%, 5% instead of the base case of 3%, I'm afraid we will have to restructure our debt again in 3 to 4 years.
Who is responsible for the growth for the year 2024? Is it the Ranil Wickremesinghe administration or is it the Anukumar Dissanayake administration?
There is a 60 billion rupees excess that the consumers has given to CB which should not have been given.
This whole tariff methodology business has got well politicized, and the public has got themselves in a twist on this.
Long-term generation plan, if they were formulated in a proper way about 20 years back, nowadays we could have absorbed less expensive indigenous resources like solar in large quantity.
Face the Nation every Wednesday at 9:30 p.m. on TV1.
Send us your application with your name, your unique talent, your phone number. To Sri Lanka's Got Talent PO Box 100 Ratmalana or WhatsApp us on 076 599 7788.
Welcome back to Face to Face. I'm in conversation with attorney at law Nuwan Bopage. Now, Nuwan, before the break, you brought up several interesting points. One is the need for new laws. Now, Nuwan, you as a lawyer, you are well versed with the Constitution and the many laws that we have. We have so many laws in this country. Of course, there's always room for improvement. But in many cases, the laws are there. Perhaps they're not 100% what we need to have, but these laws are not applied. That's the problem. So before one goes down the path of, bringing in new laws, which could take 4 months, 6 months, we need to make sure that people are aware of the laws that we already have. I mean, in the past, most parliamentarians that whom I came in contact with simply have not read the Constitution. And I hope that this Parliament, at least, that they would actually, give each one of them a copy and maybe give them a little test on it or something, because you need to, if you're a member of Parliament, you need to know what, it's the manual. It's our country's operational manual. You need to know it before you start directing it this way and that way. But that's a major drawback, isn't it? And in the past, of course, there were so many parliamentarians who hadn't passed their O levels. So, giving them a copy of the Constitution is, not something which would work.
I think, of course, before what we are demanding from especially the NPP parliamentarian, you should read Constitution. It's available. Before at least before going to the reading the Constitution, first you read your manifesto. In the manifesto, you suggested, even you promised people to bring certain important law reforms, including the Constitution. So you should tell people to what extent now you have been in the process of doing that.
Now again, it's a question of transparency, isn't
Yes, exactly. Then you have promised to abolish certain laws. Now, as you said, there are a lot of laws. The issue is the implementation. That's one side. The other side, there are certain draconian laws which are under any circumstances we can justify. So
these are laws which were brought in to suppress the people.
Exactly. In this manifesto, you promise to overnight the abolish PTA, OSA. So abolishing
the Prevention of Terrorism Act and the Online
Safety Act. To abolish the act, you need only one sentence. You need not have, it won't take much time to draft. Only one sentence, hereinafter we are not implementing, we are going to abolish that. So still you are unable to do that. So that's also part of transparency. If you are talking about the bigger picture of transparency, it should be start from your manifesto. So therefore, now high time you to do it. Now you have local authorities, you have the parliament, you have the executive powers. So you should do that. Otherwise, no point of complaining others. No point of complaining other previous governments or complaining the people, because with this majority power inside this institution, you can do that. So therefore, as People Struggle Alliance, that's what we always demanding from this government.
Now, you mentioned the Electricity Act, the CEB, that great big bugbear which has dogged Sri Lanka and been a great cause of ruin for our country and our economy, because over the decades it has been one of the most corrupt institutions. That's all public knowledge. It is inefficient, it is highly overstaffed, and basically the citizens end up paying far too much for their electricity. and of course the service is not the most efficient. We are forever told that the national grid can't handle this or handle that, and there's a power surge because there's too much solar power on Sundays, and that's not our problem. It's not the people's problem. It is a problem that the CEB is supposed to sort out. So this particular this unbundling of the CEB into separate entities, but still under the ownership and management of the government, this unbundling was supposed to make it more manageable. But we don't see that going forward either.
Even that topic is concerned, still there are contradictions in this government. Now, basically, we are of the view state should take the control over the main institutions like the CEB and ports. So these kind of things are actually economic hubs. At the same time,
but when the state does control these,
yes,
and has always controlled the power sector, the petroleum sector,
yes,
the ports. Of course, there are certain terminals which are privately run, but the Sri Lanka Ports Authority is the main actor in this.
Yeah, that's why now there are certain contradictions when we go through the statement of this government. So first of all, they have to have a clear idea about how the government should involve in these sectors and what is the role of the government. Now, Electricity Act is concerned, we know, as you said, inefficiency or various other issues were there in electricity board and other certain government institutions. So this inefficiency or these things are actually issues regarding the management. If there is a political authority involving this and having a vision, and through that vision, if they can control over these institutions, of course, this government also on various occasions. Now, for instance, there is the Sri Lanka Transport Board. There were certain government-owned entities, companies within the Sri Lanka Transport Board. Then government said soon after they came to power, certain these companies became profitable companies. Then what the indication they given, of course, the government, through the government involvement, we can convert it to profitable entities. Therefore, it is important the government involvement. What happened to CEB? CEB actually, the very reason for bringing Electricity Act, not to actually give an answer to this inefficiency or corruption, the very reason is the IMF involvement. IMF wanted some sort of reforms for electricity board, because ultimately the treasury only paid vast amount to maintain this institution. Then the IMF said you have to privatize it. The very purpose of bringing Electricity Act to privatize it, this unbundling, Act says to unbundle it to more than 12 companies, including the main grid. Main grid also, there is a possibility of privatizing the main grid as well. So actually, it's one of the dangerous measures, because even the certain Western countries also, they are not basically privatizing the main grid. That should be with the government. So even under our act, there is a possibility of privatizing that as well. So
but Nuwan, now isn't this a situation of, the national priorities, the national interest needs to be properly identified and laid down? That
exactly.
Now, for example, you mentioned the national grid, that the national grid will not be privatized because of these particular reasons. It should be laid down and understood by everyone.
Yes.
And then you get, the other day I saw a deputy minister. He was giving a press conference where he was wailing about the railways and the inefficiencies, and that there were there was this mafia of engine
Engineers.
drivers who were not showing up for work. And I mean, these are the things which we need to identify. Railways, we need to have them running. That's it, the end. And that doesn't mean privatize them, but get on with it. Don't hold press conferences and tell the public about it. What are we supposed to do? Right?
So public is not there to listen their grievances.
Yeah.
Public have given their power.
Yes.
They can take decisions.
Yeah.
That's what I want now. Now, even the Electricity Act, when that act came to the order paper, the NPP, they also challenged it before Supreme Court. The fundamental basis of challenging that there's a lack of transparency of this privatization process. For one, I give one example, the main grid interpretation, they remove 133,000 kilowatt from the main grid, the interpretation. At the same time, 1 week before that, they entered into agreement, Kanchana Wijesekara, with Adani company, allowing them to lay one of the grids over the country. So there's a connection between that particular act and the involvement of the Adani's company. So likewise, there was a lack of transparency. Rather than addressing the public interest, they brought this act to facilitate Adani company and to facilitate IMF. So there are various issues in this act. Now, if this government want to bring an amendment, they have to address that. Now, here the recent amendment, it doesn't address that. So that's why even government is concerned the lack of transparency. The other reforms, as you said, transport sector. Now, countries like Switzerland, those are the countries, the top of the capitalist regime. Even in the Switzerland, including the railway, boat service, and the buses, everything is governed by the government. Those are government. So what is the reason for that? They think it is not profit. That is not for profit. It's a service, because people are working, workers are there, general public are doing they actually they are through their labor only government is running. So this is one of the facilities given by the government to these people who are working class, and these sectors should not be profitable. That is a fundamental basis. Now this NPP government, if it is a progressive government, they should actually follow that. So these services, even the electricity is not for profit. Electricity is just because of the production only country is running. Because of the production only the government can earn something out of that. In order to enhance this production, facilitate production, government take the control of the electricity and giving that facilities to people. Transport also like that. If this is a progressive government, they should give this message to the people. So they can immediately do certain reforms to facilitate that. But rather than doing that, they are still complaining to others.
But one, you're talking about essential services, the buses, the railways, the CEB, the CPC. You're talking about those which are absolutely essential for the day-to-day living of the people and the economy. But what about state enterprises which are not profitable and are also not essential? And again, we need to know our priorities here. What are the state-owned enterprises which are absolutely essential and what are not? I mean, if you take, for example, the postal service, absolutely essential, because still checks are going by registered post. So if you stop that for a week or two, the economy grinds to a halt, because companies are sending checks to their suppliers, and customers are sending checks. It's still happening. In the Western world, of course, checks are being phased out, but here it still is. So the postal service is absolutely essential. But what about companies like, you take Sri Lankan Airlines, which is bleeding money every day. I mean, my whole problem with that company is that we don't seem to have identified why we need a national carrier. And that has to be a scientific process, don't you think, Nuwan? I mean, you can't suddenly come, you have one minister who can say, oh, we need to have a national carrier. Then another minister will say, oh, but it's costing money, we need to privatize. But there has to be a proper rational scientific basis, don't you think?
Yes, of course. Now, what is the yardstick? What is the how you should decide that? That should be decided. First, the priority should be given to the public interest. So, if the when you given prominence to public interest, then of course you can clearly analyze what are the institutions that government involvement is must. Now, there is a cabinet subcommittee report according to which they suggested around 160 institutions should be certain institution to completely shut down, and certain institution that you have to enter into the share market, and certain institutions public-private partnership. So that proposal is there in the government. The only thing is those proposals come in with an ulterior motive, that not to address that public interest, just to address the profit, the earning enterprises and their concerns. So that's the main issue now, as you said, regarding the Sri Lankan Airlines. So if there is a essential, if it should be taken as essential service, the service of that state on the airlines is must for the sake of people. Of course, we have to somehow do that. Who's going to do that assessment? That assessment should not be done by Emirates or other entity.
But it should be done by a set of professionals,
exactly.
Preferably Sri Lankans.
Exactly.
I mean, what bothers me is, yes, it's nice to have this national airline and so on, and wonderful people, wonderful airline, all that, but it's bleeding money at a time when we can't afford it. And at the same time, the argument that we absolutely need to have a national airline is a false argument. India does not have a national airline. They are doing fine. Their growth rate for the last quarter is 7.4%, among the highest in the world. They don't have a national airline. Their largest airlines are owned by the private sector. Then the United States does not have a national airline. The UK doesn't have a national airline. So if it's okay for them, then clearly you don't need a national airline. It's just something nice to have. And if it can be run profitably, go ahead and keep it, definitely. But if it's bleeding money, why keep it?
Of course, now to what extent the government involvement should be there, it's actually decision of the government. So, but the prominence should be given regarding the
but again, we need the transparency.
Exactly.
On these particular grounds, these reasons, that the decision was made.
Yes, correct.
Now, we are almost out of time, but I want to ask you, what's the role of the opposition? Now we've had 3 elections. The NPP has won. They are in place, certainly presidency and the parliament, and to a great extent in the local government bodies. Now going forward for about another 4 years, it's the NPP which is going to run the governance, basically. I won't use the words rule or power because I don't like that. Yes. But they are supposed to, they are in office, they are supposed to run these institutions, run the country. What's the role of the opposition, which at the moment the main opposition parties, goodness knows what they are doing. They are in disarray still, 8 months after the presidential election.
Yeah, the opposition is concerned. There are 2 oppositions now. One is this official opposition. Now in the parliament, SJB there, UMP there, Podujana Peramuna there. So this is the official opposition. But the only thing is, what is the role of this opposition? For instance, what are the key issues that people have been suffering now? Number 1 is the IMF IMF intervention. This opposition is not against that. They are not taking any steps there. Then number two is the Indian intervention. So these opposition is concerned, they are not doing anything. On the other hand, they are always in talking terms with India and these other institutions like IMF. So then regarding the taxation, of course, more or less all the opposition parties are agree on that, because Ranil Wickremesinghe only imposed that. When he was imposing that, I think certain the SJB and other institutes, they didn't object. They were with Ranil Wickremesinghe. So these budget and other tariffs are concerned, they are actually pro these measures. So as far as the duty of the opposition is concerned, most of the measures which have been taken by this government, there was no role of the opposition. Actually, more or less they are pro these actions. But actually, most active opposition is the unofficial active of the opposition, which the people's power. Now actually, regarding the Modi's intervention and these agreements, people only fought. Regarding the privatization of education, people only fighting. Regarding the IMF taxation and other tariffs, people only fighting. Without any support of the these opposition, so-called opposition, people only fighting. Therefore, first of all, what we believe right now, the duty of the opposition is now cast upon the people, progressive movement of this country, the People Struggle Alliance. Actually, we are representing them. At the same time, this opposition can't do anything constructively, because government knows, actually government like certain powers, certain representatives were appointed from this NP, the SJB, UMP and Podujana Peramuna. Actually government also like that, because if someone is shouting, always government has a file regarding the corruption or whatever. Now Chamara Sampath, he shouted inside the parliament, then within 2 weeks they brought a corruption charge and now it is pending. Now he's not talking anymore. So likewise, most of the opposition parliamentarians and the other politicians are concerned, always government has some sort of tool to control them. Therefore, what we are asking, people don't expect anything from this opposition because of their previous track record and because of their the current policies. They won't do anything about this government which are detrimental to the people. So therefore, we will build that proper opposition outside the parliament, outside this institution. Then only people could do something to somehow to get their aspirations from this government.
And I'm afraid we are out of time, unfortunately. My thanks to Nuwan Bopage, attorney at law who represents the People's Struggle Alliance. Good to have you on the program once again, Nuwan.
Thank you, Niresh, for inviting me.
And thank you to you at home for watching. Don't go away, because the news is coming up next, as always. And have a great week ahead.
Test cricket.